My son was in the ICU after a hit and run when my mom texted, "Pick up the decorations for your sister's baby shower. Don't embarrass us." I said, "He's still unconscious." Mom replied, "Then sit there useless or lose this family." I blocked her. The next morning, my son opened his eyes and whispered, "Dad, Grandma was here last night." Then he said two words that made me freeze. The baseball glove was on the floor of the intersection when I arrived, 30 feet from the crosswalk where my son had been standing 7 minutes earlier. I know it was 7 minutes because the 911 call was logged at 5:47 p.m. and I received the notification from Milo's phone at 5:48 and I was in my truck driving to the scene by 5:49 and I pulled onto Meridian Street at 5:54 and the glove was on the asphalt near the curb with one finger bent, backward and a scuff across the palm and a streak of blue paint on the thumb that I did not notice until later because my son was on a stretcher, being loaded into an ambulance and his eyes were closed and his jersey was torn at the shoulder and the paramedic was saying words I could hear, but could not hold. Words like impact and responsive and CT scan and Methodist Hospital. Milo is 12 years old. He plays second base for the Southport Reds. He walks home from practice every Tuesday and Thursday along Meridian Street, a route I map for him on his phone with a blue line that follows the sidewalk for 11 blocks and crosses 4 intersections, each one with a crosswalk and a signal. He was in the crosswalk at Meridian and Raymond when a vehicle ran the light and hit him on his left side and did not stop. The vehicle turned east on Raymond and was gone before the woman at the bus stop finished screaming. I picked up the glove from the asphalt. The leather was warm from the pavement. The blue paint on the thumb was a thin streak, the kind of transfer that happens when a painted surface contacts leather at speed, and in any other moment of my life I would have recognized it immediately for what it was. Because I am a commercial auto claims adjuster and paint transfer analysis is something I do 3 times a week at a desk in an office on Washington Street where I evaluate collision evidence for Midwest Mutual Insurance. But in that moment, standing on Meridian Street with the glove in my hand and the ambulance pulling away with my son inside, I was not a claims adjuster. I was a father holding a glove that smelled like leather and infield dirt and the last normal afternoon my son would have for a long time. Methodist Hospital ICU. Room 4. Milo was unconscious. The CT scan showed a concussion, a fractured left clavicle, and bruising along his left hip and thigh. The doctor used the word stable 4 times and the word monitoring 3 times and the word fortunate once, and the once was enough to keep me in the chair next to his bed with my hand on his arm and the glove in my lap and the sound of the ventilator filling the room with the rhythm of a machine that breathes when a boy cannot breathe on his own. My phone buzzed at 7:14 p.m. A text from my mother. "Lorene, pick up the decorations for Devin's baby shower from the rental place on Keystone. They close at 8. Don't embarrass us." I read the text twice. My son was in the EQ with a fractured clavicle and a concussion and a ventilator tube and his eyes closed, and the monitor beeping the number that meant his heart was still going. And my mother was texting me about balloon arches and tablecloths for my sister's baby shower. I typed back, "Milo was hit by a car. He's in the ICU at Methodist. He's still unconscious." The 3 dots appeared. Disappeared, appeared again. "Lorene," I heard. Devin told me. "He'll be fine," the doctor said, stable. "The shower is Saturday and the decorations need to be picked up tonight. Your sister is 8 months pregnant and she cannot be doing this herself. Sit there useless or lose this family. Sit there useless." My son's eyes were closed. The ventilator was breathing for him. The monitor was counting his heartbeats, and my mother called sitting next to him useless. I blocked her number. I set the phone face down on the side table. I put my hand back on Milo's arm. The glove was in my lap. The blue paint on the thumb caught the fluorescent light, and I looked at it for the first time without panic in my eyes. In some part of my brain, the part that has looked at 10,000 collision files and 6,000 paint transfers and 4,000 vehicle impacts, registered a color. A specific blue, not navy, not royal. A muted, metallic blue that I had seen before. Not at work, not in a file, but somewhere closer. Somewhere I could not place, because the ventilator was loud and my son was still, and the registration of color was buried under the weight of a father's fear. I fell asleep in the chair at 11. At 2:14 a.m., the ICU door opened. I did not hear it. I was asleep with my hand on Milo's arm and the glove in my lap and my neck bent at an angle that would hurt for 3 days. But the security camera in the hallway recorded it, and the ICU visitor log recorded it, and Nurse Tatum, who was at the station 30 feet from room 4, recorded it in her own memory, because Nurse Tatum has worked the ICU night shift at Methodist for 11 years, and she knows the difference between a family member who arrives at 2 out of love and a family member who arrives at 2 out of need. Lorene Harlo. Visitor badge issued at 2:11 a.m. Stated relationship grandmother. Entered room 4 at 2:14 a.m. Exited at 2:31 a.m. 17 minutes. I did not wake up during those 17 minutes. Milo was semi-conscious, which the medical team had noted at 1:45 a.m. when his eyes flickered and his hand moved and the monitor registered a change in his breathing pattern. Semi-conscious means aware of presence, aware of sound, aware of touch, but not fully oriented. A 12-year-old boy in a semi-conscious state can hear a voice and recognize it without being able to respond clearly. He can feel a hand on his arm, he can register a face leaning over his bed. And he can store the memory the way a camera stores a frame, imperfectly, but enough. Welcome to Family Secret Tales, where the person sleeping in the ICU chair is the one who finds the evidence. If your family has ever called you useless while you sat next to your child's hospital bed, subscribe now. Because my son is about to open his eyes and say 2 words, and those 2 words will change everything. My name is Briggs Harlo. I am 36 years old. I am a commercial auto claims adjuster for Midwest Mutual Insurance in Indianapolis. I investigate vehicle collisions. I assess damage. I analyze paint transfer, impact angles, skid patterns, and debris fields. I reconstruct accidents from photographs the way an archaeologist reconstructs civilizations from pottery, one fragment at a time, until the picture is complete and the truth is visible and the person who caused the damage is identified. I have been doing this for 14 years. My salary is $82,000 a year, which my family calls looking at wrecked cars, as if the looking were passive and the wrecking were someone else's problem. My mother, Lorene, is 63 years old. She runs the Harlo family the way a dispatcher runs a fleet. Every vehicle has a route, every route has a schedule, and every schedule serves her destination. My sister Devin is 30, 8 months pregnant with her first child, married to Troy, who is 32, and works as a tile installer and drives whatever vehicle is available because his own truck has been in and out of the shop since January. Troy borrows cars the way Troy borrows everything, without asking, without returning them on time, and without acknowledging that borrowing is a transaction that requires gratitude. Troy borrows my mother's car. A blue 2019 Hyundai Tucson, metallic blue. The blue I had seen on Milo's glove and could not place because panic does not allow pattern recognition. But morning allows it, and morning was coming. My family has a hierarchy that has never been discussed and has never needed to be, because the hierarchy is visible in every phone call, in every holiday, in every request that arrives without the word please attached to it. Devin is the center. Devin has been the center since she was born, 5 years after me, into a family that had already decided its son would be the support structure and its daughter would be the point of the structure. I am the scaffolding. Devin is the building. The scaffolding is not photographed. The building is. When Devin married Troy, the hierarchy expanded to include a man who installs tile for $36,000 a year and has never once offered to pay for a family dinner, a holiday gift, or a tank of gas in the car he borrows from the woman whose mortgage I partially fund. Troy exists in the Harlo family the way a tenant exists in a building. He occupies the space. He uses the utilities. and he assumes someone else is paying for the infrastructure because someone always has been. What my family does not know is the full scope of what I provide. I pay $1,400 a month into a joint account that Lorene manages, an account she set up when Milo was born and I was 24, and she told me it was for emergencies and family expenses. The $1,400 covers $600 for Milo's after-school programs and sports fees, $400 that Lorene told me goes to a family health supplement, and $400 that Lorene described as household maintenance for the family property. I have been paying into this account for 12 years, $201,600 total. What I did not know until I pulled the statements 3 days later was that $78. $400 of that money had been redirected to Devin's household over the last 4 years, covering Devin's car insurance, Troy's truck repairs, and Devin's prenatal care, none of which Lorene had disclosed to me because disclosure would have required admitting that the account I funded was not funding what she promised. 6:22 a.m. Wednesday, the ventilator had been removed at 4 a.m. Milo was breathing on his own. The monitor was steady. The room was gray with early light, the light that comes through hospital windows before the sun clears the buildings and turns the gray into something warmer. Milo opened his eyes. I was in the chair. The glove was in my lap. My hand was on his arm. His eyes opened the way a child's eyes open after a long sleep, slow and unfocused and searching for the thing that anchors them, and the thing that anchored Milo was my face. "Dad, I'm here, buddy. I'm right here." He looked at me. His eyes focused. His lips moved. The words came slowly, pushed through a throat that had been intubated for 14 hours and was raw and dry and working harder than a 12-year-old's throat should have to work. "Dad, Grandma was here last night." My hand tightened on his arm. "What?" "She was here." She leaned over the bed. She looked at my eyes. She kept asking if I saw anything. The room went cold. Not the temperature, the understanding. Lorene had come to the ICU at 2 a.m. not to hold her grandson's hand, not to pray, not to cry. She had come to find out what he saw. She had leaned over a semi-conscious 12-year-old boy in an ICU bed and asked him if he saw anything, and the asking was not the question of a frightened grandmother. It was the question of a woman who already knew the answer and needed to know if the boy knew it too. "Milo, did you see the car that hit you?" He nodded. Once small, the nod of a boy who has been carrying something since 5:47 p.m. yesterday and has been waiting for the right person to give it to. Then he said 2 words, "Her car." I did not move. The glove was in my lap. The blue paint on the thumb was visible in the morning light. Muted, metallic, the exact blue of a 2019 Hyundai Tucson that I had seen in my mother's driveway every Sunday for 6 years. "Grandma's car?" I asked. "The blue one. The one Troy drives." Welcome back to Family Secret Tales. If you are the parent who sits in the chair and holds the glove and blocks the phone and stays when your family tells you to leave, hit subscribe. Because the paint on this glove matches a car I know, and the person driving it is sitting at my sister's kitchen table right now, planning a baby shower while my son is in a hospital bed identifying the vehicle. I almost stood up and drove to Lorene's house. The address was in my phone and the glove was in my hand and the 2 words were in my ears, and 12 years of collision analysis were telling me that the paint transfer on the thumb was consistent with a metallic blue automotive finish, likely a Hyundai color code NKA. And the trajectory of a vehicle turning east on Raymond after running a light on Meridian was consistent with a driver coming from the direction of the Bar District on Raymond Avenue. But Milo's hand on my arm stopped me. His grip was weak, but his eyes were clear, and the 12-year-old in the bed needed his father more than the claims adjuster needed the evidence. The evidence would be there at noon. The boy needed me now. I called Nurse Tatum at 8 a.m. She was at the end of her shift. A woman came to room 4 at approximately 2:14 a.m. She was here for 17 minutes. She leaned over the patient and spoke to him. "Can you confirm?" Tatum was quiet for 3 seconds. I logged her in. Lorene Harlo. She said she was the grandmother. I see a lot of families in this ward, Miss Harlo. The ones who come at 2 a.m. are either the ones who love the most or the ones who need something. Your mother asked me 3 questions before she went in. Is he awake? Can he talk? Has he said anything about the accident? Those are not love questions. Those are information questions. Can I get a copy of the visitor log and the hallway camera footage for that time? I will have the charge nurse authorize it this morning. I almost stopped after the nurse call. The visitor log and the camera footage would confirm Lorraine's presence. The paint on the glove would confirm the vehicle color. Milo's statement would confirm the identification. 3 pieces of evidence, each from a different source, each pointing to the same car. That was enough for a police supplement. But the $201,600 stopped me. The 12 years of payments into an account that was supposed to serve my son and had been quietly redistributed to the daughter who was planning a baby shower while my son was unconscious. That number was not a collision. It was a fraud. And fraud requires documentation before confrontation. I left the hospital at noon after Milo's doctor confirmed he would be held for observation through Friday. I kissed my son's forehead. I put the glove in a clear evidence bag from my work kit in the truck, the same kind of bag I use to collect debris from collision scenes. The same plastic I have filled with broken glass and torn rubber and fragments of headlight lens from 1,000 accidents that belonged to strangers. This bag held a glove that belonged to my son. The plastic crinkled when I sealed it. The sound was familiar. The weight was not. I drove to work. The Midwest Mutual office was quiet at 12:30 on a Wednesday. Half the adjusters were in the field. The reception desk was empty. I walked to my cubicle, set the evidence bag on my desk, and sat down next to a photograph of Milo at his last game, grinning with the glove on his left hand and the ball in his right. The photograph was taken 3 weeks ago. The glove in the photograph was clean. The glove on the desk had blue paint on it. 3 weeks between a clean glove and an evidence bag is the distance between a normal life and the life I was living now. I did what I do every day. I investigated a collision. Except this time the claimant was my son and the vehicle was my mother's, and the driver was my sister's husband, and every step of the process I had performed 1,000 times for strangers was now a step I was performing for the boy in room 4 who had said 2 words that morning. And changed the shape of every relationship I had. Paint transfer analysis. The streak on the glove was consistent with metallic blue automotive paint, Hyundai color code NKA, manufactured 2018-2021. Lorene's 2019 Tucson was aqua blue metallic. I pulled the Hyundai color chart from our database and placed it next to the glove. The match was exact, not close, not approximate. Exact. The blue on the thumb was the blue on the chart, was the blue on the car in my mother's garage. I submitted a request to the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police for intersection camera footage from Meridian and Raymond, 5:40 to 5:55 p.m. Tuesday. The request was flagged as supplemental to the existing hit-and-run case. Estimated processing, 48 hours. I called the bar on Raymond Avenue. The Rusty Rail. I identified myself as a claims adjuster investigating a vehicle incident and asked if they had a receipt or card transaction for a customer named Troy between 4:30 and 5:45 p.m. Tuesday. The bartender checked the system. A tab had been opened at 4:52 p.m. under the name T. Hollis and closed at 5:22 p.m. 2 draft beers, 1 shot of bourbon. Total, $24.50. 25 minutes before Milo was hit, 2 blocks away, by a man who had consumed 3 drinks and driven a car that was not his through a red light into a 12-year-old boy in a crosswalk. I pulled the joint account statements that evening. The bank's online portal organized 12 years of deposits into a column that scrolled for 4 pages. $1,400 per month. 144 deposits. Every one from an account in my name. Every one routed to an account Lorene controlled. And in the withdrawal column, a pattern that emerged 4 years ago like a second set of tire tracks on a road that was supposed to lead in one direction, monthly transfers to an account ending in 4471, which I traced to an account in Devin Harlo's name. $1,630 per month. Consistently, without deviation. Without disclosure, my $400 health supplement was going to Devin's car insurance. My $400 household maintenance was going to Troy's truck repairs and Devin's medical co-pays and a payment on a crib set that cost $1,200 and was sitting in a nursery in a house that my money maintained while the woman who managed the account called me useless. Lorene had been rerouting my deposits to Devin's household for 48 months. $78,400 in redirected funds. The number sat on my screen like a collision estimate that exceeds the value of the vehicle, which in the insurance industry means the vehicle is totaled, and in a family it means the relationship is totaled, and the adjuster who determines the total is the same man who has been funding the vehicle for 12 years without knowing the odometer was running in someone else's name. I almost called the police that night. The evidence was assembled. The paint matched. The bar receipt was time-stamped. The camera footage was processing. The financial fraud was documented. But the glove stopped me. It was sitting on my kitchen table in its evidence bag, blue paint on the thumb, and the leather still smelled like infield dirt and Milo's sweat in the last normal Tuesday of a boy's childhood. The glove reminded me that this was not a claims file. This was my son. And my son deserved to see his father handle this the way a father handles it, face to face, in a room. With the evidence on the table and the truth in the air and no phone call, no voicemail, no text thread to hide behind. Thursday, I drove to Lorene's house. The drive from my apartment to Lorene's house on the west side of Indianapolis takes 22 minutes on a good day. And today was a good day for driving and a bad day for everything else. The evidence bag was on the passenger seat. The bank statements were in a folder next to it. The bar receipt confirmation was printed and clipped to the folder. The camera footage request number was written on a Post-it note stuck to the folder's cover. 4 pieces of evidence in a passenger seat, each one collected the way I collect evidence at work. Methodically, documented. And aimed at a conclusion that the evidence supports whether the person at the other end wants it to or not. Devin's car was in the driveway, Troy's borrowed truck was on the curb, and Lorene's blue Hyundai Tucson was in the garage, visible through the side window, and even from the driveway I could see what I needed to see, a scuff on the front bumper passenger side, at the exact height of a 12-year-old boy's hip. The paint around the scuff was chipped, the plastic was cracked, and the bumper had been washed, recently and thoroughly, with the kind of focused attention that a person gives to a surface they are trying to clean of contact evidence, which is the first thing every hit-and-run driver does and the first thing every claims adjuster looks for. Because guilt and soap leave the same streaks. I took 3 photographs from the driveway. Bumper damage, scuff height, wash marks. I knocked on the front door. Lorene opened it. Behind her, the living room was decorated for the baby shower, pink streamers, a balloon arch half assembled, gift bags on the dining table, a cake box on the counter. Devin was on the couch with her feet up. Troy was in the kitchen holding a beer. Briggs, I did not expect you. I need 10 minutes. We are setting up for the shower. This is not about the shower. I stepped inside. I did not wait to be invited. I set the evidence bag on the dining table next to the gift bags. The glove was visible through the plastic. The blue paint on the thumb was visible. The scuffed leather was visible. And the table that was set for a baby shower was now holding the evidence from a hit and run that had put a 12-year-old boy in the ICU while the people in this room planned a party. Tuesday at 5:47 p.m., a vehicle ran a red light at Meridian and Raymond and hit my son in a crosswalk. Milo has a fractured clavicle, a concussion, and bruising across his left side. He was unconscious for 14 hours. He is still in the hospital. We know this, Briggs. I told you he would be fine. You told me to pick up decorations. You told me to sit there useless or lose this family. And then you came to his room at 2:14 a.m. and leaned over his bed and asked him if he saw anything. Lorene's face shifted. The dispatcher confidence broke for one beat, one flash of the eyes toward Troy, one involuntary look that confirmed everything. I went to check on my grandson. You went to check if your grandson could identify the car. Because you already knew which car it was. You saw the bumper Wednesday morning, Mom. You saw the scuff. You saw the cracked plastic. And instead of calling the police, you called a sponge. You washed the evidence off the bumper of the car that hit your grandson, and then you went to his hospital room at 2 a.m. to find out if he remembered what the bumper looked like before you cleaned it. Lorene's mouth opened. I was protecting this family. You were protecting Troy. There is a difference. This family includes Milo. Milo is in a hospital bed with a broken collarbone and a concussion because the man you were protecting drove drunk through a red light and hit him in a crosswalk and kept driving. That is not a family you were protecting, Mom. That is a conspiracy you were managing. I pointed at the glove. Blue paint transfer on the thumb. Hyundai color code NKA. Aqua blue metallic. The same color as the Tucson in your garage. The Tucson with the scuffed bumper at hip height. The bumper you washed this week with dish soap and a sponge, while my son was lying in a hospital bed, breathing through a tube. Troy set his beer on the counter. His hand stayed on the bottle. His face did the thing that faces do when the room tilts and the floor is no longer level. Troy left the Rusty Rail bar on Raymond Avenue at 5:22 p.m. Tuesday. 3 drinks. Tab under the name T. Hollis. 25 minutes before my son was hit 2 blocks away. Troy was driving your car, Mom. Troy ran the light. Troy hit Milo. Troy drove away. And you knew. Troy brought the car back Tuesday evening with a dented bumper, and you knew what happened. And instead of calling the police, you washed the bumper Wednesday morning and texted me about streamers Tuesday night while the evidence was still fresh on the plastic. Devin stood up from the couch. That is not true. Troy was home by 5:30. He was on the couch when I got back from the store. Troy's bar receipt says 5:22 p.m. 2 beers and a bourbon. The drive from the Rusty Rail to your house takes 11 minutes. He would have arrived at 5:33. Milo was hit at 5:47. That leaves 14 minutes unaccounted for. 14 minutes is the time it takes to hit a boy in a crosswalk, turn east on Raymond, circle back to Raymond Avenue, park the car in your mother's garage, and walk the 4 blocks to your house, looking like a man who had been home all along. Devin's face went white. She looked at Troy. Troy looked at the floor. Troy, did you hit my son? Troy did not answer. His hand was on the counter, and his knuckles were pressed into the granite, and his body had the stillness of a man who has been caught in a lie and is calculating whether silence is better than the truth, and is discovering, in real time, that silence in a room full of evidence is the same as a confession. The intersection camera footage is being processed by IMPT. The paint transfer on the glove has been analyzed. The bumper on the Tucson has a scuff at exactly the height of a 12-year-old boy's hip, and Milo identified the car this morning from his hospital bed. He recognized Grandma's blue Tucson from the crosswalk. He said 2 words, Troy, her car. He knew. He has known since 5:47 p.m. Tuesday. He just needed to be conscious long enough to say it. The room went quiet, the way rooms go quiet when every person in them is recalculating the last 48 hours and discovering that the math does not work in their favor. Let me tell you what you cost my son. A fractured clavicle. A concussion. 14 hours on a ventilator. A $47,000 ICU bill. 6 days in a hospital bed. And a grandmother who came to his room at 2, and not to hold his hand, but to find out if he could identify the man who hit him. I looked at Troy. You hit my son and you drove away. That is a felony hit and run in the state of Indiana. I have the paint transfer, the bar receipt, the bumper photographs, the ICU visitor log, and my son's statement. The supplemental police report is being filed this afternoon. Troy's hand came off the beer bottle. His fingers were shaking. His jaw was set, but his eyes were moving, scanning the room for an exit that did not exist, because the exit was behind the man holding the evidence bag, and the man was not moving. And you, Mom, I turned to Lorene. You have been rerouting my payments for 4 years. The joint account I fund at $1,400 a month, The account you told me was for Milo's programs and family health and household maintenance has been sending $78,400 to Devon's household. My money. For Troy's truck repairs, for Devon's insurance, for prenatal visits, for a baby whose father hit my son and drove away. Lorene's hands went to the back of the dining chair. She gripped the wood the way a person grips something when the floor is moving, and the chair is the only thing that is not. Her knuckles whitened, her chin dropped. Her breathing went rapid and shallow, and her eyes fixed on the glove in the evidence bag as if the glove were the thing that had betrayed her. Not the car, and not the cover-up, and not the text message that told her son to sit there useless while she protected the man who put his child in a hospital. You texted me sit there useless, or lose this family while your son-in-law's bar receipt was still warm and your car's bumper was still dented and my son was on a ventilator. You called me useless. The useless son is the one who found the car. The useless father is the one who stayed in the chair, and the useless claims adjuster is the one filing the report that puts Troy in front of a judge. Devon sat back down on the couch. Her hand went to her stomach. Troy did not move. Your car hit my son. Your son-in-law drove it. You knew Tuesday night, and you texted me about decorations. I picked up the evidence bag. The glove inside it had caught fly balls on Tuesday afternoon and caught evidence on Tuesday evening, and now it was the most important piece of leather in Marion County. This is the last payment into the joint account, the last dollar routed through your hands, the last time I fund anything connected to this family. Milo is being discharged Tuesday. The police supplement is filed this afternoon. Troy will be contacted by a detective, and the civil suit for the $47,000 in medical expenses will be served next week. The baby shower can continue. The decorations are lovely. But the guest list has changed, and the change is permanent. I walked out. I closed the door. The balloon arch was half assembled, and the streamers were pink, and the cake was on the counter, and the evidence bag was in my hand, and the afternoon sun hit the blue Hyundai Tucson in the garage on my way to the truck. And the car looks smaller from this angle. The way things look smaller when you know what they have done, and the knowing removes the scale that fear had given them. The fallout was criminal and financial and permanent. Troy was contacted by a detective Friday morning. The intersection camera footage had been processed. A blue 2019 Hyundai Tucson, plates partially visible, running the light at Meridian and Raymond at 5:46 p.m. The detective matched the plates to Lorene Harlo's registration. Troy was arrested Saturday afternoon, 7 hours before the baby shower was scheduled to begin. The charge, felony hit and run causing serious bodily injury. Indiana Code 92611.1. Bail was set at $15,000. Devon could not pay it. Lorene could not pay it. The baby shower did not happen. The balloon arch stayed half assembled in Lorene's living room for 3 days because nobody came to finish it and nobody came to take it down. The pink streamers curled in the heat from the vent. The gift bags sat on the dining table where the evidence bag had been, and the table that had held a 12-year-old's baseball glove now held presents for a baby whose father was in a holding cell and whose mother was sitting on the couch in the same position she had been sitting in when I walked in with the evidence, except now the couch was empty of explanations and the room was empty of the lie that had kept the week moving forward. Lorene sat in her garage on Sunday evening, the door up, looking at the blue Tucson. But the garage would not be quiet for long. The same detective who arrested Troy came back for Lorene on Monday morning. He arrived at 9 a.m. with a second officer and asked Lorene to step outside. He told her that the forensic examination of the Tucson's bumper showed evidence of recent cleaning, soap residue in the seams of the plastic, and that the ICU security footage and visitor log confirmed she had entered her grandson's room at 2:14 a.m. and questioned a semi-conscious minor about the accident without the knowledge of the child's father, who was asleep in the same room. The detective asked Lorene directly, did she wash the bumper of the vehicle involved in a felony hit and run? Lorene said she was cleaning the car. The detective informed her that knowingly destroying or concealing evidence related to a felony investigation constitutes obstruction of justice under Indiana Code 3544122, a Level 6 felony. He gave her a card and told her to contact an attorney. The woman who had spent 63 years dispatching her family was now standing in her own driveway, being dispatched by a man with a badge who did not care about the baby shower or the balloon arch or the streamers or the hierarchy. He cared about the bumper. The bank fraud investigation opened the same week. When I closed the joint account on Monday and presented the 12 years of statements showing $78,400 in unauthorized redirects to Devon's household, the branch manager flagged the account for internal review. The review examined whether the account's stated purpose matched the actual disbursements. It did not match. The discrepancy was forwarded to the bank's fraud compliance team. And Lorene received a formal notice by certified mail the following Thursday. The bank was conducting a fiduciary review of her management of a joint account in which she was named as a secondary holder, and the findings would be shared with the primary account holder and, if warranted, with law enforcement. The certified letter sat on Lorene's kitchen table for 2 days before she opened it. And when she opened it, the language inside was the language of institutions, not families. And institutions do not giggle, and institutions do not play favorites, and institutions do not care whose daughter was the center and whose son was the scaffolding. The car was parked where it always parked, in the center of a single bay, under a fluorescent light that buzzed the way fluorescent lights buzz in garages where things are kept and not discussed. The bumper scuff was visible from the folding chair she had placed 6 feet from the front end, as if sitting at a distance could create the separation that the evidence had already closed, as if 6 feet of concrete could undo what a detective's card and a certified letter and a crosswalk and 3 drinks at a bar had done to a woman who thought washing a bumper was the same as washing a crime. The joint account was closed Monday. I pulled every auto pay, every transfer, every routing instruction connected to Lorene's account. $1,400 a month, gone. 12 years of deposits, ended with a phone call to the bank that took 7 minutes and required 1 signature and 0 apologies. Milo's after-school fees were rerouted to a new account in my name only. The $800 that had been flowing to Devon's household stopped the way water stops when someone closes the valve, completely, immediately, and without negotiation. Lorene's number had been blocked since Tuesday. I unblocked it after the confrontation because evidence requires a record. She called 11 times Monday. I let every call go to voicemail. She left one final voicemail at 9:47 p.m., 91 seconds, containing the sentence, "You are destroying this family over an accident." Over an accident. A felony hit and run was not a crime. It was an accident. A grandmother who washed a bumper and interrogated a semi-conscious child and redirected $78,400 was not an accomplice. She was protecting the family. And a son sitting next to his child's hospital bed was not a father. He was useless. The civil suit was filed Wednesday. Briggs Harlo v. Troy Hollis, $47,000 in medical expenses, plus damages for pain, suffering, and lost activities. Troy's tile installation income was $36,000 a year. The suit exceeded a full year of his earnings. Devon called me Thursday and asked if I would drop the suit if Troy apologized. The suit is not about an apology. It is about a boy in a crosswalk and a man in a bar and a car that did not stop, and a grandmother who washed the bumper and a mother who texted about decorations and a family that knew and said nothing for 48 hours while that boy lay in a hospital bed breathing through a machine. Devon hung up. Tuesday evening. Methodist Hospital. Discharge. Milo walked out of the hospital at 5:15 p.m., 6 days after a car hit him in a crosswalk and the driver did not stop. His left arm was in a sling. His steps were slow. His face was thin from 6 days of hospital food and IV fluids and the deep exhaustion that comes from being 12 years old and learning that the people who are supposed to protect you are the same people who sent the car. He walked past the nurse's station where Tatum had logged his grandmother's 2 visit. He walked past the hallway camera that had recorded his grandmother's entry and exit. He walked past the elevator where Lorene had stood with a visitor badge clipped to her blouse. 17 minutes of questions compressed into a laminated rectangle that the hospital kept on file and the police had already collected. The baseball glove was in his right hand, not in the evidence bag. The police had photographed it, sampled the paint, cataloged it as evidence item 7B in the supplemental report, and returned it Thursday afternoon with a receipt that I signed and filed in the folder that now contained every document generated by a Tuesday that started with baseball practice and ended with an ambulance. The leather was still scuffed from the impact. The blue paint was still on the thumb. Faded now from the lab sampling, but visible. A streak of metallic blue on brown leather that would be there for as long as the glove lasted, which would be as long as Milo wanted to keep it, which would be forever, because a boy does not throw away the glove that caught the truth about the people who were supposed to love him. I carried the discharge folder. Insurance papers, follow-up appointments, physical therapy schedule starting week 3, medication list, concussion protocol for return to school and return to sports. The folder was thick with the kind of paperwork that hospitals generate when a 12-year-old is hit by a car, and the paperwork did not know or care that the car belonged to the boy's grandmother, and the driver was the boy's uncle, and the cover-up was managed by the woman who texted the boy's father about party decorations while the boy breathed through a machine. The paperwork just measured the damage and assigned it a number, and the number was $47,000, and the number was now in a civil suit that would follow Troy Hollis for longer than the sling would be on Milo's arm. We walked to the truck in the parking lot. The evening was warm. June in Indianapolis. The kind of evening where the air holds the heat from the day and releases it slowly. And the sky is the color of a bruise fading from purple to gold. And a boy who has been inside a hospital for 6 days tilts his face up and breathes through his nose and smells something that is not antiseptic and not recycled air and not the flat, sterile nothing of a room where machines measure whether you are alive. Milo climbed in carefully with his good arm favoring his left side. He set the glove on the dashboard. The leather caught the evening light through the windshield. The blue paint on the thumb glowed for a moment, then settled into the shadow of the visor. "Dad?" "Yeah, buddy." "Can I still play second base?" The doctor said 8 weeks. "Then you can throw. Then you can play." 8 weeks. He counted on his fingers. That is the last 3 games of the season. That is 3 games. He looked at the glove on the dashboard. The glove that had caught grounders on Tuesday afternoon and caught a hit and run on Tuesday evening and had spent 6 days in an evidence bag and was now sitting on a dashboard in the evening light with blue paint on its thumb and a season to finish. 3 games is enough, he said. I started the truck. The radio was off. The evening was quiet. The parking lot was half empty and the hospital was behind us, and the road home was the same road it had always been, straight and simple and lit by the headlights of a truck driven by a father who had been called useless by a family that needed him and had never once said so. The glove sat on the dashboard the whole way home. It did not move. It did not need to. It had already done its job. Welcome back to Family Secret Tales. If this story reminded you that the person they call useless is the one holding the evidence, share it tonight. Hit subscribe, drop a comment, and tell me, has anyone ever called you useless while you were doing the hardest thing you have ever done? I will see you in the next one.